whereas some other manufacturers, or actually most of them, miss the ISOFIX on those 6th and 7th seats, or in this case here, the 5th and 6th seat. And I think it's actually the best to use them for child seats, because otherwise you just have a very small niche between children that are not anymore needing a child seat anymore, and when they're not too tall. So just a very small niche of children age and size who could otherwise use those last seats. But here with the ISOFIX, you can also use it then with the child seats very easily. So overall, I think a good solution. Well, and in the front, you can also press the key twice in the front and then you can open this front trunk, a little bit like in the Porsche, just wider from left to right. And well, I'm not sure if you use it that often in everyday driving life, but at least it gives you even more flexibility. And then one strange thing happened. So I can still change the volume, at least it says so, but it doesn't change the volume, it just appears to be changing the volume. Also in the central screen, the camera is still showing the GPS, well, somewhat. I cannot change anything, it's not responding at all. And well, especially important, this info when you're a Tesla owner already. What do you do then? Well, you know, there are those two buttons at the steering wheel, left side here for the volume and right side to control the right side of the central screen. You hold both of those buttons parallel, you know, with left and right thumb, and that should reboot the system. But that really takes some time. By the way, again, this flickering you can see here, it's not in real life. It looks really good in real life. So, here we go. We're back online. We can also change the temperature here again. So, this is actually quite easy solution. You just have to know how to change it. And I mean, I've been saying it a couple of times. It's also critical with digital instruments in general. We've also received reports from different manufacturers that you had some digital instruments and they failed and had to be rebooted, maybe with start stop or so. Well, that's the downside of not having analog stuff. Welcome to Thomas's driving lounge, here the driving part. And one of the most important things about this vehicle is recuperation. So you lift your foot off the throttle, and now I'm starting the real braking process because I really want to come to a standstill. But the car is really decelerating as soon as you lift your foot from the throttle. And this is really helpful because, you know, also in a normal vehicle, when you switch from the throttle to the brakes, it usually, you know, takes a second then that you reach your brakes, unless you're a racing driver and drive with two feet, like left one on the brake pedal and right one on the throttle. You have to be careful with that. If you're not used to that, you're too sensitive and then you're really hammering the brakes because you don't have the feeling in the left foot. But if you have practice, you can actually do that. Otherwise, usually you just use your right foot and then you switch. But then again, as soon as you lift the throttle, you get the deceleration, the regenerative braking. And it is said that vehicles, electric vehicles in general, can gain about 10% of the energy then, you know, overall back then again. So it is definitely useful, and you also see it then in your range. And talking about the range here directly at the beginning, at the moment I'm consuming about 211 watt hours per kilometer, and that is, you can directly calculate that, this 21 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometer. That is pretty decent. So if you're really performing a lot, then it's about 25 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And then you can calculate, okay, 25, and then 100 kilowatt hours is the battery. So 4 times 25 is 400 kilometers of range. When at the moment we're cruising at about, you know, 21 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, then I can even score better range figures up to, let's say, 450 kilometers or something. So, you know, 300 miles plus, and I guess this is perfectly fine and still among the best here in the electric vehicle segment, because here also the 100D is the one with the biggest range or highest range, because the P103 has more performance. You sometimes tend to use it and then you get less range. And the 75 version of this vehicle here, well, that one has a smaller battery, but the 100D and the P103 have the very same battery. And when you're standing still, you can also use some more of those control settings here. Then you're not here in language and units. I can switch to miles, for example, and then I can also tell you a figure here. So 320 watt hours per mile. Then again, that would be 32 kilowatt hours per mile. So at the moment, the consumption is really, really decent. Yeah, 32 kilowatt hours per mile. So with the Porsche Cayenne hybrid, by the way, it was approximately the same. So it was always, between 20 and 25 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. And with the BMW i3, very smaller vehicle, lighter vehicle, it was around 14 to 17 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. So not really half, but almost half. So you see that this big vehicle, it is actually heavy still, and therefore consumes also a lot of energy, but still reasonable if you compare it to fuel. By the way, if you see the display flickering, and you have just seen that when I'm on a wide screen it's flickering more, it's because of the camera. It's not really matching the hertz rate of the monitor. If you look at it here in detail, it looks perfectly fine. And how cool is that? I can have not only GPS but also the rear view camera. Usually it deactivates with every vehicle when you're driving faster, but here I'm at 60 kilometers an hour and I'm still looking at the rear camera here. This is really amazing. And since the rear mirror is really not that huge and I can't see so much, I can actually see better in this rear camera what's going on behind me. So, why not? I think it's pretty fancy. In general, this vehicle is of course about the silent electric ride. You feel so relaxed by that, and I really just love it. And you have the instant torque. I'm also at the moment in the chill mode, so I'm having less acceleration on purpose, because this vehicle is so strong. It can really accelerate that hard. 5 seconds to 100 kilometers or 62 miles an hour with the 100D, or 3 seconds with the P, with the performance version. This is really insane for a 2.3 ton heavy SUV. So now I'm changing to the standard acceleration mode. I can show you some acceleration soon when we approach the motorway. And even if you're at higher speeds, the torque is always there. That is the big advantage of those electric drives. This is really amazing. And of course, look at this panoramic view here to the front. This is so great. It is a very, very unique driving feeling. This car really feels like no other. This is also the main characteristic of this car. So now let's do some 70 or 65 kilometer to 100. Let's go. There we go. Even if you use it, and I've driven the Model S in the P100D version, which is even more extreme, which has an acceleration figure with 2 point something, I think 2.8 seconds as was. I've shown you that also in the acceleration video, so in the full review as well. Check that out as well. But still, you're always amazed, and it is not connected to a sound, so your brain doesn't work with that actually. So imagine you're sitting in your chair or on your sofa couch at the moment, and then someone does like this, but without a sound, and suddenly you're 200 meters more somewhere else, and you're like, what's going on? I haven't noticed that. This is really something, wow, really, really special. But then again, to something negative about this car, I'm at the moment at the 100 kilometers an hour or 62 miles. This is still okay, but everything that goes above that really increases the wind noise. It's also worse than in the Model S. So there's different form. Yes, it is somehow streamlined, but still, you have more wind noise than in the Model S, and also have a bigger resonance room here. And this is also the one of the biggest weaknesses if you compare it to German premium manufacturers, or even, if you take Lexus for example, the sound insulation, that's for sure. So they haven't figured that out that well, and especially then if you think about a German approach to a vehicle, where you can drive sometimes, in a, let's say, Mercedes E-Class, or even the Mercedes SUVs, where you drive 160 kilometers an hour, or like 125 miles an hour or something, and you think, am I standing still? I don't hear any wind noise. But that's not the case here. And then again, yes, it is a great feature of the car when it's silent at fast speed. It's great, there's no question. But the question is, how much effort do you really put into that? So for German customers, yes, it's definitely